Hey everybody. My project this afternoon, I'm trying to adjust my small refrigerator. I've got a little one here that we use mostly for cooling drinks off when the big refrigerator's full and we have guests. And it runs really cold. It tends to freeze things. And I've turned it down and turned it down and turned it down, and it's like below 1. It's almost on min, and it's too cold. I opened up the section where the thermostat is, where the knob is to make adjustments, and found the thermostat, and it looks like it has an adjusting screw. So I'm going to take a shot at trying to make an adjustment on it. Now, this is a capillary tube based thermostat, which is very, very common. I don't know what the failure mechanisms are, but I've had these in the past where the band gets too wide. In other words, not only does it run too long, but then once it does shut off, it'll go the other way and be too long turning back on. So, for example, you'd like this to hold temperature, so okay, if it's going to shut off at 35 degrees, you'd like it to turn back on, with a thermostat. Let's say minimum is 35, you'd like it to turn back on by 38 or 39, maybe about 4 degrees, maybe less, right? And sometimes you'll end up with these where, it turns on at, turns off at 35, and then it turns back on again at 45 or 50. Well, in that case, you may have to just plain replace the thermostat because there may not be another choice. So anyway, I'm going to set up my meter here. My caution is when you work on these, you have to unplug it and take all the power off because it'll be 110 volts on the back of that thermostat. I'm going to set up my my digital voltmeter so that I can read the and try to make an adjustment. Sometimes you can often hear these, and I may be able to hear it just by going click click, but I think it'll be easier if I put my meter on it. Before I open the door and let the cold air out, my strategy is that, like right now, if it doesn't shut off until 1, I think I want to turn the adjusting screw and increase the temperature up to a higher point so that it turns off. In other words, if it's turning off at 1 now, it's a 1 through 5, and 5 is running longer. I'd like to move it from 1 to maybe 3, somewhere in the middle, so that I have some adjustment. Because right now I'm all the way at the bottom and I basically don't have any adjustment other than just plain turning it off. So currently it's at 0 ohms, so the switch is closed. I've had a thermometer in here, and the walls of this, it's been really cold, but I've had the door open a bit, so it's around 40 degrees. If I turn the knob, see my clicking point right now, there it says open, is just about all the way at the bottom. And then if I go all the way around to the top, I've got almost a full circle, right? I've got about 3/4 of a circle. So right now, it's clicking there. I'm going to go about halfway. See, there it goes open. There it closes. See, its range on this case seems like it's fairly short, so that's a good thing. So I'm going to go about halfway. There's an adjusting screw in here, and it's sealed with a bit of glue. So I'm going to turn on that dude and see if I can get an adjustment. Now the capillary tube goes up here. It goes up to the top. I guess you can't see it, but up above here in the freezer, it's measuring the side of the freezer, not the air temperature down below. So that gives me a little bit of time, but you can't leave the door open too long or things won't work right. So here's let's see if we can make it go and count the number of turns. So there's a half, 1, 1.5, 2, 2.5, 3, 3.5, 4, 4.5, 5. Well, I'm going to go 5 turns in. I haven't heard it click yet, but let's see if I get a... Well, I've moved it quite a long ways. So I'm very close to the top. And the range actually seems like it increased. So I'm going to back it off. I'm going to go back the other way just a little bit. There's a half, and there's 1. Alright. So I'm going to call that about 4.5 turns. Alright. Well, I'm going to disconnect my gear here. And when I'm sure I have it where I want it, I'll go back in here and seal that screw with a little bit of cement or something. But right now, it's time for an experiment. See what we get. Get her fired back up. I'm working on the little fridge again. Where I left off the last time was I had gone in, I had hooked up my meter, I had made an adjustment and tried to make that adjustment using the meter to tell me when I clicked over, so to speak. And I ended up going in about 4 turns. And that was way too far. I went back and let it run, and it was like 50 degrees was the set point. It was just not right. Not only that, but the range from on and off got quite a bit wider. And I had some experience with these capillary type thermostats where when they start getting a wide range like that, a lot of times they've just fatigued from age and they don't work anymore again, and they're just done. So I went ahead and ordered one of these, which is a WPF20 thermostat, and I bought it through Amazon. And it looked like it had the right configuration of metal. I measured very carefully, and it looked like the best shot. So, for whatever, $16 or $18 or something, I bought one of these. And in comparing it, I think the only thing that it looks like that is not correct for my application is this ground tab is a 1/4 inch wide, appears to be about a 1/4 inch wide. It looks like it's wider than the connector that I have. So if I use this, I may have to change that connection. Not certain until I get in there and try it. But anyway, this is the right size. The knob fits. It looks like it should be a good one, and I could install it. However, I was limited in time, and I gave up. So I have a new one, but I decided to take the time to see if I could correct my mistake of going too far. And I started backing out that screw back from 4 turns or so in. What I did was, I fired it up, I let it get cold, and then checked, and up in the freezer compartment here, the coils were running, somewhere around 0, right? -5 to maybe +5. Once I got it backed out, I'm probably only a turn or so in from where I was before. I don't know exactly. I've lost count because using these little jeweler screwdrivers, it's pretty hard because the handle turns. It's pretty hard to count. But I would say I'm probably about 1 turn in. And back to my original problem was that I had this all the way set to minimum, almost turning it off, and it was freezing everything, right? It was running 30 to 32 degrees and at min. So somehow, through trial and error, without using my voltmeter as a guide. I've gone in, I've backed off the screw, and then I took the knob on the shaft of the one that's in the box. I'm going to open up the box in a minute, but I don't want to let all the cold air out, so I'm going to leave it sit for a minute. But anyway, I took and I rotated to the bottom, I rotated to the top, I went about halfway in and let it run. I measured the freezer compartment, it was running around 0 with that kind of a setting, because you can go, you got on, I was going to say is, when you're messing with this, unplug the unit, make your adjustments, because you don't want to go and get a shock. It's 110 volts on the end of here. So I let it hang, unplug it, make an adjustment, turn the knob, and then plug it back in. Once close the door, plug it back in. After my trial and errors, I finally got to the point where, with the freezer compartment running about around 0, and I could turn this knob down and up, back and forth with it that cold, and the center between those 2 points was roughly in the middle of the band. I stopped, I closed it up, and let it run. And currently I'm going to open it up here, and this has been sitting on the bottom shelf. It's coming up fast because I'm holding it, but it was reading about 40 degrees just sitting here on the bottom of the shelf, and you could hear it just turned on because I have it open. So I've been measuring it just with this on the bottom shelf. My knob is roughly, it's roughly in between 2 and 4. It's up in this area. I'm going to let it stabilize just a little bit longer. I also have my little infrared. See, it says the sides are about 42 degrees. And I've had the door open here for a minute. If I go into the freezer compartment, it's reading about 6 right now, having just fired up. 5. So that's pretty good. Once I got it set so that it seemed like it was a reasonable point, and the goal is to be in the middle so you got some adjustment up or down if you don't like what you got. But with that final screw adjustment, see, I've got a sheet of paper here with a lot of numbers on it. I just kind of sat down here and sit in front of the fridge here for an hour or two, and I let it run for a while to get settled down. It's turning off at about 38 degrees. It's cutting back in at about 40 to 42. So I've got, like, the minimum is 38 and the maximum is 42, and it's typically running between about 38 and 40, 38 to 40 on the bottom shelf using that temperature, using that mechanical thermometer. There are 2 things that you're worried about. One is, what's the temperature band? So it looks like I'm holding about 4 degrees bottom to top. That's a pretty good band. If it was a 10 degree swing, I would be concerned. 4 is about right. My time between on and off, it's around 10 minutes. It was as short as about 6 or 7 minutes and as long as about 15. And I think it depends a little bit on how, what I was doing is every time it changes state, I pop open the door real quick, read the thermometer, get a reading, put it back, close the door. But it takes a few seconds, so I'm letting warm air in every time. It's no more than 15 minutes and no less than 5 minutes through, and as time has gone on, it's kind of settling around 10 minutes. So I'm pretty happy with that. So I'm not sure what I'm going to do with this one yet. I'm going to set it aside for the moment. I could return it if this continues to work well, but maybe I'll put it on the shelf and save it. I'll see. So now what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to seal that screw. I'm going to reassemble this and let it run and verify that it's good. First, unplug it. Right about 40 degrees. And like I say, it's warming up as we go, but it's running right around 40. Now, again, with it unplugged, because those are hot, there's a screw in here. This is the screw we've been adjusting. and I need to seal that back up. There's another screw on the bottom right here, if I understand correctly, would help me set the deadband. You know, if I was getting 10 degrees swing, I could, in principle, adjust that and reduce the swing. I haven't tried that yet, but that's the other adjustment that's available to you. Given that this one seems to be working, I'm going to reassemble it. So the first thing I need to do is seal that screw up. I mean, there are all kinds of things you could use. I'm going to use some wood glue, some tight bond wood glue. This is pretty doggone good stuff for wood, and I'll tell you, it glues plastic pretty well because it's really a devil when you get it in here to get this tip open. It's pretty strong stuff. So I'm going to take a dab of that on a paper towel here, and I'm going to use a toothpick and just put a drop of it on that screw. You don't want to get too much, or there we go. Just going to paint the edge of that. Let's put this back together. It's not really too difficult. Pop that off the handle, and then you just, when you put the glue in, you just want to be kind of careful because you don't want it all getting down in the mechanism. So it just takes a little spot. Anyway, this one snaps into place. There it goes. Just gotta push it in far enough. Gotta push it in far enough that it snaps and settles in. Okay. Well, that one looks good. And then let's go ahead and put the shaft on. And see my setting. Yeah, it worked out pretty good. That setting's at a little above 3, which means I've got room to turn it up or turn it down. And then this one was a little tricky getting off because there's only one screw. But I guess I gotta route this tube back up at the top like that. That's where it came out. And then there are a couple of slots here. Get that one in, and that one in, and slide it back, like so. Yeah, there's one screw on this one. There's one screw up there at the top. Let's plug her back in. And got the light bulb changed. The old one was burned out. Okay, so now I got that all done. I'm going to let it run with my thermometer in there, and I'm going to check it over a period of hours and see how it looks. The thermostat, this one looks identical on the outside. I don't know how good the calibration is. They make these so that you could use them on a fridge like this with a freezer in the top and a fridge in the bottom, for those that are just a freezer, for those that are a beverage cooler without a freezer, and each one of those applications has a different setting. I'm not certain, you know, the specs on these, when you look at Amazon postings, it's hard to decipher them. But I think this one would work as is for this. I checked, and you know, the shaft matches. The only thing I think that's different, the original one for here doesn't exist anymore. It's not made. You know, it may be as easy as me changing the connector on the end of the ground wire in there, because that's all that is a safety ground. I guess I'll point out is that, so right there is the screw on the new one, and it's sealed up with a little dot of glue, not much actually. And then there's a screw right there next to this terminal that is also sealed with a little bit of glue. And from my research online, that one is supposed to be I'll call it the differential screw, and the first one is the set point. So the advice has been, from me doing other research, is adjust your set point here. If you get your set point where you want it and you've caused the deadband to be different and you don't like it, then you could adjust that one here. And the suggestion, which I haven't tried, is that the deadband screw if you screw it in, you'll tighten the deadband. Can't answer for sure because I haven't tried that yet, but right now it's working. I'm happy. That's all for now.